Have you ever felt that sinking, gut-twisting suspicion that the woman you love might be looking for something, or someone else? That tiny, nagging voice in your head that whispers, "Am I enough?" Most men dismiss it. They tell themselves, "She wouldn't, not my girl." But the truth, it's more common than you think. And what I'm about to tell you isn't to scare you, it's to arm you. Because ignorance in love is expensive, and the cost is your heart, your dignity, and sometimes your lifelong trust. Here's a hard truth that society refuses to talk about. Women cheat more than men. And before your mind jumps to defensive denial, listen carefully. This isn't about judgment, it's about psychology, about human nature, about the hidden impulses that women carry silently, and the patterns men rarely understand. Men, society conditions you to think cheating is a male problem. Movies, jokes, even your friends' stories make it seem like men are the predators. But the data tells a different story. Across cultures, in committed relationships, women are just as likely, sometimes even more likely, to step outside their bonds. Why? Because emotional needs matter more to women than you've been taught to notice. A woman can have a good-looking, successful, attentive partner and still feel unfulfilled if her emotional hunger isn't met. And when she seeks that connection elsewhere, it isn't always about sex. It's about validation, attention, feeling desired, feeling powerful. It's psychological. It's primal. And if you don't see it, you're blind to the risk. But here's where most men make the fatal mistake. They assume love alone is enough to protect a relationship. That loyalty is automatic. That respect is guaranteed. That her choices will always mirror your effort. That's naive, and it leaves men vulnerable to betrayal that could have been anticipated, and even prevented, if they understood female psychology at its deepest, darkest, and most irresistible level. So today, I'm going to reveal truths women don't tell you, signs men miss, and the patterns that repeat silently across every relationship. By the end, you'll either wake up to reality or you'll ignore it and pay the emotional price. The choice is yours. But the first step? Awareness. And awareness begins with a single question. Can you see beyond what she shows you to what she truly feels? Here's the truth most men never notice. Women are wired to test loyalty, not always consciously but instinctively. It's not about being evil or calculating. It's about survival, attraction, and social dynamics that have been hardwired over centuries. When a woman feels her emotional or social needs aren't fully met, her mind begins running scenarios in the background, small thoughts that could lead to bigger actions if ignored. And here's the dangerous part. Men often confuse her testing for harmless attention-seeking, flirting, or even friendship. They dismiss it. They laugh. They think, she's just joking. But those tiny signals are the early stages of a much bigger pattern. Most men believe cheating happens overnight, a single mistake in a weak moment. But female betrayal is usually a slow burn. It starts emotionally long before it ever becomes physical. She seeks validation outside, compliments she isn't getting at home. She invests in conversations with someone new, someone who listens without judgment, someone who mirrors the admiration she craves. And every time she's acknowledged there, her mind rewires the way she sees her current partner. This is the subtle psychology that men miss. And here's what makes it even more dangerous. A woman rarely wants to hurt her man consciously. The secrecy, the compartmentalization, it's a mental dance that protects her from guilt while she pursues what she subconsciously believes she deserves. She rationalizes. She justifies. He doesn't notice me anymore. He's always busy. I deserve excitement. And all the while, the man remains oblivious, assuming that because she's smiling, because she's affectionate, because she's still present, nothing is wrong. But here's the catch. It's not just emotional. These behaviors shift her chemistry. Her body begins to respond to the attention she's receiving elsewhere. Small emotional flirts create neurological changes, dopamine, adrenaline, reinforcing attraction to someone outside the relationship. It's invisible, it's powerful, and it happens long before a single kiss, a single text, or a single confession. Most men only see the last step, the obvious betrayal, and by then, it's too late. They wonder, why didn't I see it? But now you're being taught to see it, to recognize the early, almost imperceptible signs that precede infidelity, to understand the psychology before it manifests physically. Because knowing the signals, the subtle shifts in attention and desire, gives you a choice: to act, to protect, to change the trajectory of your relationship, or to suffer the heartbreak that ignorance guarantees. Let's talk about the red flags, the quiet, almost invisible signals that most men completely miss. These are the patterns that whisper danger long before any betrayal becomes obvious. And here's the brutal truth: if you're not paying attention, you'll only notice when it's too late. First, notice her attention. A woman who is emotionally invested in someone else will start dividing her focus. It's subtle at first. A lingering glance at her phone, a pause when she's talking to you, a smile at a message that makes her light up in a way you haven't seen for months. Men dismiss these signs because they appear harmless, even trivial. But every small diversion of her attention is a thread weakening your bond. Ignored consistently, those threads unravel into full-blown emotional connection outside your relationship. Second, look at her communication. Women who are contemplating or already engaging in emotional infidelity begin to withdraw, not in anger or conflict, but in subtle ways. Shorter responses, delayed replies, less sharing about her day. She may still appear affectionate in person, but the depth of connection, the intimacy, starts slipping away. And when a man misses this, he assumes everything is fine, never realizing that her emotional energy is being invested elsewhere. Third, notice changes in her self-presentation. Suddenly, she's more conscious of her appearance, more attentive to messages you might never see, or more secretive about her phone and social media. These aren't superficial behaviors. They're indicators of energy being redirected. She's preparing for attention outside the relationship. Men often rationalize this as normal or vain, but psychology shows it's a common precursor to infidelity. Fourth, watch her responses to conflict. Women who emotionally cheat often avoid deep confrontations or redirect conversations to trivialities. This is a defense mechanism. She's protecting her secret emotional investments. You might think she's just avoiding arguments, but it's a sign she's compartmentalizing her emotional life, creating mental space for someone else. Here's what most men fail to understand. These signs are consistent, predictable, and rarely random. Emotional cheating is methodical. It builds over weeks and months. Men miss it because they focus on the obvious: physical intimacy, arguments, or dramatic confession. But betrayal usually hides in plain sight, quietly, subtly, in ways that are psychologically invisible until it explodes. Now ask yourself, have you been ignoring these tiny signals? Have you been lulled into comfort while your relationship quietly shifts? The difference between heartbreak and awareness is your ability to read these cues, to act on them, to protect yourself before the emotional damage is done. Now let's dive into what really drives a woman toward infidelity, the psychological triggers that men rarely understand, and the behaviors that unintentionally push her closer to someone else. Most men think it's all about temptation, about a single impulsive moment. The truth is far more complex and far more controllable than you've been led to believe. A woman's emotional ecosystem is delicate. She craves attention, validation, and intimacy. When these needs are ignored, or worse, dismissed, it creates a void that can never be fully filled by love alone. You might be providing stability, security, and even physical affection, but if her mind doesn't feel seen, heard, and desired, she begins to look elsewhere. It's not just insecurity, it's biological wiring, mixed with learned social behavior. She needs to feel prioritized, chosen, and mentally stimulated. Deny her this consistently, and she will subconsciously start searching for it outside your relationship. Another trigger is predictability. Men often fall into routines, good routines, but predictable ones. The same conversations, the same dinners, the same habits. Women are wired to notice subtle changes in attention and energy. When the thrill, unpredictability, or emotional excitement fades, her mind unconsciously begins to explore new connections that promise stimulation, novelty, and recognition. This doesn't always start with sexual desire. It often begins with emotional curiosity. The dopamine of being seen in a new, exciting way can outweigh years of loyalty if ignored. Neglect of emotional labor is a silent killer. Most men underestimate the mental and emotional work a woman invests in a relationship. Listening, remembering small details, validating feelings, creating a shared emotional world, these are not optional for her happiness. When a man fails to contribute consistently to this invisible effort, her psychological energy drifts. And where energy drifts, desire follows. Then there's resentment, small, simmering disappointments that men never acknowledge. He didn't notice me today. He forgot my birthday. He doesn't seem to care about my passions. Each micro-moment builds, stacking like bricks. Unchecked, it creates a mental and emotional distance, and distance is fertile ground for emotional cheating. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Men often accelerate this process unknowingly. A lack of awareness, complacency, or dismissiveness acts like fuel on a fire. The more a man ignores these triggers, the more his partner's mind seeks fulfillment elsewhere. This isn't manipulation, it's human psychology in action. So ask yourself honestly, are you unknowingly creating cracks in your relationship? Awareness is the weapon most men lack. Recognizing these triggers gives you a chance to act, to prevent the emotional drift before it becomes a betrayal. Because once it becomes a habit, once her mind is invested somewhere else, catching up emotionally is almost impossible. Now let's talk about one of the most dangerous dynamics in relationships: the subtle ways a woman rationalizes or manipulates her own behavior, and how men unknowingly enable it. Most men think manipulation is intentional, a conscious strategy. But in reality, it often starts unconsciously, as a psychological defense mechanism, a way to justify emotional drift without guilt. A woman who begins to cheat emotionally or physically often rewires her own mind to make the behavior acceptable. She tells herself things like, "He doesn't appreciate me. I deserve excitement. It's harmless. It's just attention." These internal justifications protect her from guilt, while simultaneously opening the door to deeper emotional involvement with someone else. And here's the part men consistently miss. When a woman feels justified in her desires, she stops communicating honestly. She starts creating mental barriers, and men interpret these as minor mood shifts, stress, or temporary distance, not the early signs of betrayal. Next is compartmentalization. A woman will create mental silos, separating her love for you from her attention to someone else. To the outside world, including you, everything looks normal. She can smile, laugh, and maintain intimacy at home while simultaneously investing emotionally elsewhere. Most men think love is binary. She's either loyal or she's not. Female psychology doesn't operate in black and white. It's fluid. And this fluidity makes emotional drift almost invisible, unless you're paying close attention. Then there's projection, a psychological trick both genders use, but women often employ unconsciously in relationships. She may accuse you of behaviors she herself is entertaining, testing your reactions. "You don't care about me. You're always distant." It's not always conscious deception. It's a way to externalize guilt, justify her emotional needs, and even manipulate your attention back toward her. Men often respond defensively, increasing her emotional distance without realizing they've played right into her mental strategy. Finally, let's talk about secrecy. Phones, social media, private messages. These are not always tools of active betrayal, but they are enablers. When a woman feels emotionally neglected, the human brain naturally seeks reward systems, attention, and validation. Small lies or omissions can spiral, creating mental spaces for emotional attachment elsewhere. Men see secrecy as minor infractions, but in reality, it's the psychological bridge to betrayal. The brutal truth is this: men rarely spot the mental patterns that precede cheating. They see the surface actions, maybe a flirtatious text, a late night at work, a distant demeanor, but miss the underlying psychology that drives it. If you understand these tactics, these thought patterns, you can intervene early. You can recognize the red flags before they become heartbreak. Let's get real about the signals men consistently miss, the behavioral and subtle physical cues that reveal a woman is emotionally or physically drifting. Most men think cheating shows itself in obvious ways: secretive phone calls, being late, avoiding intimacy. But psychology tells a different story. The signs are often quiet, almost invisible, and only noticeable if you know what to look for. First, watch her energy. A woman who is losing emotional investment will start to redirect her energy away from you, even if she's physically present. She may seem distant in conversations, distracted during intimate moments, or uninterested in activities she once loved with you. Men interpret this as tiredness, stress, or moodiness. But in reality, it's a subtle shift in attention. Emotional energy always follows desire, and if her energy drifts, her attachment is drifting too. Second, note her physical body language. When she's emotionally invested, her posture, gestures, and eye contact are engaged. But when she's growing distant, her body subtly signals disconnection. Crossed arms, avoiding prolonged eye contact, leaning away during conversations, or creating invisible barriers. Even the way she laughs, touches, or interacts can subtly change. Men often ignore these micro changes, thinking they're inconsequential. But they're warning signs. Third, pay attention to digital behavior. We live in a world dominated by screens. When a woman's attention begins to shift, small digital changes occur. Longer phone screen time, sudden secrecy about messages, new social media connections, or a shift in her online presence. These aren't always definitive proof of betrayal, but they are signals that emotional energy is being redirected, and emotional energy is the precursor to physical action. Fourth, watch how she invests in your shared life. A woman emotionally attached will contribute consistently to joint experiences, planning dates, showing excitement for milestones, caring for your well-being. When she starts withdrawing, these contributions decrease. She may still participate, but the enthusiasm fades. The effort she once gave is now being invested elsewhere. Men rationalize this as normal stress, missing the fact that emotional investment is being siphoned. Finally, note changes in intimacy patterns. Emotional cheating often precedes physical cheating. She may become less affectionate, less vulnerable, or avoid deeper conversations. Or paradoxically, she may become overly affectionate, almost performative, to mask inner disconnection. Men misread both extremes, thinking all is well when the mind is already elsewhere. Understanding these subtle cues gives you power. Most men wait for betrayal to announce itself in dramatic fashion, but if you learn to read energy, body language, and micro behaviors, you can intervene early. Awareness is not paranoia, it's protection. Now we need to confront the harsh reality. Most men unknowingly accelerate the very behaviors they fear. The mistakes are subtle, often rooted in ego, assumptions, and a lack of emotional awareness. And these errors create cracks in your relationship that women can and often do, slip through. First, men underestimate the power of emotional attention. You might think providing money, stability, or physical presence is enough. But women crave psychological connection, the feeling that they are seen, understood, and desired on a deeper level. When a man fails here, even unconsciously, he leaves an emotional void. That void doesn't remain empty. It's filled by someone who offers what he cannot. Second, many men ignore early warning signs. You might notice slight emotional withdrawal, subtle flirtations with someone else, or a shift in her energy, and dismiss it as harmless or temporary. This is critical. Ignoring these microsignals communicates complacency. Women, being highly intuitive, notice this. Lack of attention to small patterns often makes emotional drift inevitable. Third, men overreact when they finally see the signs. Instead of addressing subtle shifts, early with awareness and calm influence, they explode in anger, accuse, or withdraw entirely. Women interpret this as insecurity, unpredictability, or emotional instability, and it often pushes them further away. Men unintentionally create the very environment that drives emotional or physical infidelity. Fourth, men fail to engage in the continuous dance of desire. Relationships are not static. Attraction and connection require effort, nuance, and emotional intelligence. Too often, men assume the woman's loyalty is automatic. They stop courting, stop creating excitement, stop validating on a psychological level. And predictability kills desire faster than any external temptation. Fifth, men underestimate their role in the emotional ecosystem. Every conversation, every gesture, every micro-behavior matters. A dismissive comment, a failure to notice her emotions, or repeated neglect, even subtle, creates accumulation. These micro-moments are the fertilizer for emotional drift. Men often think only dramatic failures matter, but betrayal grows quietly, brick by brick. Here's the key. The difference between heartbreak and a strong, loyal partnership is awareness and intervention. If you see the subtle patterns, recognize the triggers, and respond with intelligence rather than reaction, you regain control. You can reverse emotional drift before it becomes betrayal. Ask yourself, are you acting with awareness, or are you letting complacency and assumptions dictate your relationship? Most men think they are doing enough. The truth is, emotional vigilance is not optional, it's essential. Now let's bring it all together. Awareness alone isn't enough. You need action. Understanding female psychology, recognizing the signs, and identifying the triggers only matter if you use that knowledge to protect, strengthen, and reclaim the emotional center of your relationship. This is where most men fail. They wait for betrayal to strike, thinking knowledge alone is safety. It isn't. Action is power. First, reclaim emotional attention. Don't assume she's automatically loyal because she loves you. Be deliberate, ask questions, listen deeply, and notice the small details about her day, her feelings, and her desires. Emotional attention is not optional. It's the invisible glue that keeps desire alive. Without it, even the strongest relationships can quietly unravel. Second, maintain unpredictability and excitement. Emotional drift often begins with monotony. Surprise her with small acts, novel experiences, or thoughtful gestures that demonstrate you are fully present in her emotional world. You are not just her partner. You are the source of challenge, intrigue, and admiration that keeps her emotionally invested in you, not someone else. Third, set psychological boundaries. Don't allow minor flirtations, emotional shortcuts, or secrecy to go unchecked. Address subtle shifts immediately and calmly. Ignoring them only gives them space to grow. Women are highly sensitive to attention dynamics. How you respond matters more than what she says. Your energy communicates whether her emotional drift is permissible or not. Fourth, invest in your own growth. A confident, self-aware, ambitious man naturally attracts loyalty and desire. Emotional cheating is often drawn toward men who have lost their edge, their presence, or their emotional magnetism. When you focus on your own development, you not only protect your relationship, but you create a magnetic pull that makes emotional betrayal less likely. Finally, recognize that love is both emotional and strategic. Awareness, attention, subtle influence, and psychological intelligence are not manipulations. They are protections. You are safeguarding the bond, not controlling it. A man who understands these principles becomes almost immune to emotional drift because he addresses the roots before they manifest. Here's your challenge. Think about your relationship, your actions, and your awareness. On a scale from 1 to 10, how much attention are you truly giving to the emotional needs of your partner? Beyond the surface, beyond routine, beyond comfort? Write your answer in the comments. And if you found this video eye-opening, like, subscribe, and share it with a friend who needs to hear this. Because awareness isn't just power, it's survival.